This video, I'm going to share with you what I think is one of the most beneficial and life-changing things that I think pretty much anyone can do. And it's not a health thing or a supplement or some kind of device or even any kind of spiritual empowerment. Basically, it comes down to simply trying to be the best you can at something, picking something and then trying to develop your skill and your skill level and your understanding in that particular thing, whatever that might be, whether it's some sport or some art or some craft or a business thing, doesn't really matter. I don't think that much. I think just the process and the methodology of dedicating yourself to something, focusing on one thing, and trying to be the best you can be at that thing, even just for your own personal reward, and maybe not even necessarily something that you'll ever monetize or use in a professional way, I think is one of the most useful and beneficial things that any human can do. For me personally, it's been something that has been one of the best things that I'd ever done, and it's been one of the things that's actually led to the most doors opening, meeting the coolest people, being able to travel, and being able to have a lot of different new life experiences just came from that one thing. And originally it started off, I was playing sports as a kid, and that kind of laid some of the foundation. And then when I was in high school and college, trying to teach myself how to play guitar. And then once I made progress at playing guitar, obviously, I wasn't like world class or, uh, like Jimi Hendrix or anything like that. But from where I started to where I went, and I realized like, oh wait, I developed kind of my own process and my own kind of system for this, which I could probably try and use for other things, which I did. And then even took it as weird as into weird things as like getting better at driving a car quickly, which is just the most random, unrelated thing to anything health or spiritually related that I'd been interested in for the previous, decade. Um, so I think basically this is one of the best things that anyone can do because of, I mean, just the way it changes your mindset, the way it changes your opinions of others. I think it really can allow a person to really mature and develop some genuine insight and wisdom just from the process of struggle and continual and repeated failure at that trying to be good at something typically requires, unless you're completely deluded and some kind of narcissist or something where you do something and you do it very poorly, but you think you're amazing, you think you're world class. Which there's a lot of people like that. I've met a few in my life, and it's always like, wait, dude, like you're not doing anything and you're terrible, but you think you're, God's gift. But more power to you. So I think that just leads to kind of developing a certain degree of humility and a certain degree of keeping yourself accountable. Because another thing that usually happens is that if you're trying to learn something, usually you're going to be mixing in with a lot of people that are a lot better than you at that thing, more experienced, more successful, whatever that might be, depending on the avenue. So even that can kind of check yourself and kind of put yourself in kind of in a hierarchy, which I think, that term, that word gets obviously trashed a lot these days because, oppression and exploitation and abuse of power are not great things. However, I think being in some kind of hierarchical system is actually beneficial for a lot of people for these reasons, meaning if you're trying to move up your skill level and whatever that is, and there's people above you that are much more experienced and much more skilled than you are, that can develop a really useful relationship. And again, that can kind of check a lot of the a lot of the nonsense that comes with just like being a person, especially a person in modern age, where we feel like our opinions are valid, even though we might not have any real experience or life grit to back them up. We feel like we should be heard because we're saying something. Just basically all these extremes that we see in modern times where I don't personally really agree with it. I personally kind of ignore the vast majority of things that the vast majority of people say, unless they are, more skilled or experienced in something, then of course I'll listen to them, which people might say, oh, that's elitist, or oh, you're a jerk, or oh, it's mean. But at the end of the day, we all think this way. I mean, you're not gonna like take financial advice from the guy pumping your gas, even though he might be amazing. It's just if you see a guy in a Ferrari in like a designer suit and like living in a huge house and seems very successful, you probably want to take financial advice from them because clearly they've produced the results versus someone who doesn't. It's just kind of common sense. Like you wouldn't call like I don't know, some random guy off the street to come do plumbing or electrical work in your house. No, you're going to find someone that's specialized and has skill in that particular thing. And you're probably going to choose whoever's actually the best and who actually can provide the best result because that's ultimately all you care about because you're a human being, because ultimately that's all most of us really care about most of the time is like what we want and what we're trying to get. But the problem is that not a lot of people realize that or are willing to admit that about themselves, or admit that to themselves, or they're just have no skill at anything. So they're just frustrated and bitter and angry and upset because they don't have any sense of empowerment or being able to move themselves forward in something. So then they just kind of take it out on the rest of the world or just kind of be fairly silly individuals. But again, I think this is kind of a simple, kind of benign thing, and it can also get very deep. Like we're talking about humility, we're talking about learning really important lessons about life. And again, I'm not going to make this very long, and I think that's just some of the benefits I've tried to get across. And obviously, there's a big one, which is if you get good at something, or at least good enough at something that you can charge other people money for, now you have a business, now you have a livelihood, now you have something that you can do. And if it's something you really enjoy, if you're one of those lucky people, then that's a whole other thing. If it's something you have a natural talent for, which most of us don't, most of us aren't Steve Jobs, or like, most of us are not revolutionaries despite what social media might might make us believe. Most of us are extremely regular, quite replaceable, and generally not that special. Or maybe that's just me. Maybe my self-worth is that low, that I just view myself as fairly replaceable and not necessarily that special at the end of the day. Because, I didn't create Apple or or Tesla or, something else that massively changed humanity. Most of us will never do that. Like I said, despite what social media says. But we can still access some of the benefits of these things by, like I said, picking something and trying to be good at it. Doesn't mean you have to stick with it forever. You can eventually abandon it. Like there's plenty of things that I was very dedicated to for years that I don't even do anymore at all because I just moved on to something else. But I retained the skill of trying to develop skill, which just comes down to like dedication, focus, repetition, practice, and just kind of a lot of boring, unattractive, unsexy stuff. So again, I can highly, highly recommend this, for anyone, especially younger people trying to find out what they want to do in life, or even someone who's a bit older. Something that I continually come back to, and something that I think is very beneficial and very useful, obviously, which is why I just made like a 10-minute video about it. So, anyways, hopefully this has been helpful, and I'll talk to you soon.